fancier since last time I've been here.
This is the first
We've
time.
really this is us stepping our game up.
Well, now you're hiding it behind the
pretty
pole.
low key. So for the first timers, usually we just hang out at the table and Fargo Game Makers. The whole idea behind the meetup is really just we know making games can be tough. North Dakota is still kind of like growing its game dev, game maker industry. So it's like, hey, let's just get together in a room and really an accountability thing and just help encourage each other and inspire each other.
Just a bunch of farmers.
Yeah. I mean, that's important too, but we're kind of trying to diversify that. So that's really the Fargo Game Maker goal or mission in a nutshell. So anyway, for the first timers, I'm Kyle. Thanks for being here. We're really excited today. Kind of changing it up. Again, like I said, usually our meetups is very laissez-faire. We get in, we kind of talk about projects that we're working on. Hello.
Hi.
We talk about projects that we're working on, or if we're first time or what's new, what brings us in. Some people are just fans and want to come and check out what the Fargo Game Maker community is all about. So we really have all walks of life as part of the Fargo Game Makers. But today is a special meetup because Maria, you're from out of town. And you are part of 7 Generation Games. We don't have that happen often. That's something we get a guest speaker from out of town. And then thanks to John for this connection. So normally we kind of go around and introduce ourselves, but I think today we're just going to transition right to you, Maria, to your presentation. Afterwards, we can break away and just kind of chat, visit. We got the space. This is CJ's space, so you can hang out here until midnight until he kicks you out. So. With that being said,
Perfect. Is here the ideal spot? Here on the other side of the floor.
I think right there is very nice.
Perfect. Okay. So, hi, I'm Maria Burns Ortiz. I am CEO and co-founder of 7 Generation Games. We started in Los Angeles. We just opened an office in Minneapolis, and kind of I will get into a whole bunch of the things that we're up to. But when I was thinking about talking here, and I was thinking, okay, what do I wish that I knew? Because there's lots of things that over the years we've been doing this. We started in 2012 and we went all in. We had an investor who said, I will give you money, but everybody has to quit everything, right? So we went all in 2015. And there were a lot of things that we learned along the way that I wish somebody would have told me. So hopefully some of that's helpful. And I really wanted to focus on kind of bigger picture things just because sometimes we're saying why we decided that Unity was going to be better than Vuforia for VR or whatever is very, very micro. And so I want to kind of hopefully give some bigger picture things. Last year I was on Standing Rock Reservation. We worked with a lot of tribal schools, and the principal insisted that the training that we do had to be in person. We're trying to do it virtually, but he said, every single one of my schools is placed from Teach to America, and so they need somebody to come in and show them how it works. Because he said to me, no matter how easy people say it's going to be, it never is. So if there's any takeaway about anything, especially while making games, that's probably my biggest one. He was talking about how easy it is to learn a new software, and anyone who's ever learned a new software knows that it's never as intuitive as developers say it is, and we will hit on that in a minute. But like I said, this kind of is, I literally framed this and I have it over our developers' desks because I think this is a really good message when you're going into making games, either whether you're making them and you feel like all these other games are blowing up and everybody's doing great or it's just so much quicker for other people, but also a message for when you're dealing with your users. So this is me. I am kind of different in that I always say we work a lot with schools, so I say I straddle both sides of the digital divide, right? So I grew up mostly in Los Angeles. But for 6 years of my childhood, we lived in North Dakota, outside of Minot and Jamestown. So that did shape a lot of what we do, especially when we work as a company today. But after that, I went to NYU, I went to become a journalist, I worked at ESPN, I was the first social media columnist for there, and that was really cool and really fun. And then after 6 years, I thought, well, my whole goal when I was younger was to grow up and write for ESPN. And so I started writing for them when I was 23, and after some years I thought, well, now what, right? Hopefully this isn't the peak of my life. So I didn't just wake up one day and say, I want to make video games. My co-founder, who is also my mother, so that's an interesting story right there, but she got a grant to create an educational video game, right? And so she has technology background, and then we had a developer with us who was also part of the project. And she said, I need somebody to write the story. So come and work with me and make these video games. And I was trying to figure out what to do. At the same time, my sister got super famous, and so we got a book deal because she had the opportunity to write a book, and she needed a writer, and she happened to know a sports journalist who lived in her house. So at that point, we weren't living in the same house, but so we wrote that, and that gave us some very non-traditional seed capital to invest into the company. And also, when you're starting a company, you don't make a lot of money for quite some time, so that allowed me to work on that, and my husband not to say, you're doing what? So we founded 7 Generation Games. Right now we have 11 people on our staff, and then we have a bunch of artists and contributors. We're now, like I said, we started, our whole goal was close the math proficiency gap, initially for Native youth in North Dakota. And we realized that if we close that gap using games, was our real goal, like it would scale wherever we wanted to do, right? Like lack of math proficiency is not limited to reservation communities in the state of North Dakota. And right now, we've seen that happen. So we started focused on tribal schools. We're now working in 4 different countries. We have a pilot with the entire country in Trinidad and Tobago. We spent the last year in Chile. We received 2 rounds of funding from the Chilean government to create educational games focused on the Chilean schools. And then we're also working on a project with the Dominican Republic. So, as well as now, the bulk of our users, our customers are between Wisconsin and Montana, North Dakota and South Dakota, Minnesota being our real hotspots within the United States. And so we've really continued to build out games there as well. We have 15 games. Every few days it seems it changes, but we have 15 games. About half of those games are fully bilingual, so either English, Spanish, also Lakota. We have the very first, I feel very 100% confident saying we have the absolute very first English Lakota educational math game, and certainly they also the very first English Lakota math virtual reality game. So, and we're also doing one in Dakota now, and just a whole bunch of other ones because we have built out our platform so that we can build games that way. We have received $2.4 million to date. Most of that has been from non-dilutive grants, so kind of get into some of the funding there, investors, and then crowdfunding. When we did our second crowdfunding campaign, so we've done 3, it was the 3rd highest educational game ever on Kickstarter at the time. I'm sure, hopefully for other companies, they've surpassed that, but we found a lot of success that way as well. So it sounds really cool, but this is basically how it's felt a lot of the way, just a grind. And what I thought is that if Morgan Freeman narrated my life, it sounds like what I would be, we went in to launch the company, like, well, what Maria wished she'd known then was. And so here's what it is. One, you can't pay anyone with user numbers, right? I see this all the time because there's a big push in gaming about like how many users do you have, or in tech in general, right? But you have to figure out how you're going to cover your costs. And I've never heard anyone say, I was meeting with an investor not that long ago, and they said, well, your user numbers are whatever. And we have somebody who, they had 5 million users within 3 months. 1, I think it's a big lie in the educational games because I would have heard of it. And 2, I said, yes, but have they made any money off of those users? And they were like, well, no. Well, I can't pay developers. I can't say, great job, Gonzalo. Here's 1 million users. Go and give that for rent. So the big thing is whether you're making games like as an actual business or just kind of a hobby thing, there's still costs, right? So there's either time or your, actual money, whether it's development, whether you have to pay artwork, you have to pay to market it, even if it's just paying things like your Unity fees, right? And ideally, the more, and we've run into some of these issues as we've grown, it's a good thing to grow. But then all of a sudden, there's a lot of these platforms you've been using for free, and all of a sudden you hit a certain number of users, and now they want cash, right? So you have to figure out how you're going to do that. So 1, you can bootstrap, which just feels like you're throwing money out the window. 2, you could do grants. We did USDA grants. USDA has been our primary funder because we focused on games for rural tribal communities. But SBIR, there's a bunch of funding, although I'll hit on in a second what that also requires. And then Startup Chile, there's several different markets. Chile is probably the biggest international one, but they fund companies to try and commercialize technology there. And a lot of Startup Chile is actually just was like people who had just started out. We were probably one of the most advanced in there. but ways that other markets are looking to build out kind of incubator programs. So grants were great because they're non-dilutive. So we got almost $2 million. We didn't have to give anyone anything. So that was awesome. They suck up our entire life when we're writing them. My co-founders brought in $20 million lifetime in grants, not just for us, but you'll get an RFP for a grant and it'll say, expect 40 hours. Like, I don't know who that is because she's done it for years and she blocks off 10 weeks. Now, it's not necessarily 10 weeks full time, but it's 10 weeks. And they won't just fund a game. So if you're talking about games, they want something more. And part of it's because they want something that's not replicable, and investors want the same thing. But a lot of games, especially if you're doing games for good, so educational games or games, we're also doing a project with 3 affiliated tribes about not just teaching math, but teaching taking games to teach healthy decision making to children and families impacted by substance abuse. So if they have a component beyond like this game's really cool, there's also a lot more funding for that. Investors, people talk about investors and say, you just need to get an investor and like act like people will run and throw bags of money at you. I'm waiting for that day to happen. I leave the door open just in case. But we have investors. We've been really smart on our investors, and not to pat ourselves on that, but we really wanted people that weren't going to be, I think we've been around long enough, we've seen what did work. And so sometimes people come in and they get super excited and they give up too much equity. And then you lose control because you have to answer to someone. So it's nice to have investors who can kind of, and that you do have some kind of check-ins with, but you don't want someone that's going to then be able to fire you, which I've known several people who got fired from their own company, which that sucks. And investors want crazy numbers. Like I said, they want 5 million users in 3 months. And they're really scared of games because what's to stop someone from coming in and copying your exact game, right? Like that's so many games out there are just rip-offs of what was already out there. Accelerators and incubators, and there's way more of these in terms of, and they give you an opportunity to kind of build out what you're thinking. We did one very early on. We did one in 2015, so right when we decided to go all in, we did one, and it was one of the best things we did for us as a company. People talk about accelerators especially, and they accelerate you. Sometimes they accelerate you up, and sometimes they accelerate you down, and that's fine because you'd rather crash and burn before you go too far down the road. So we did crowdfunding, and for people who aren't looking at it as kind of a hobby thing or even early starting a business or just looking to make some money on their game, crowdfunding, I'm a huge proponent of that for a couple reasons. You can test interest and get pre-sales, right? So when we did our games, most of our things that backers got was basically a full version of the game, right? So if you back more and you got early access and you got all of these things. So it was really a way for us to say, okay, we've done pre-sales. We know that we have 15 classes sold. We have a couple hundred people that want to buy it, and also it's an amazing marketing vehicle. But it's a way to kind of promote that. And so Kickstarter, I think, was great. That people go back and forth about whether Kickstarter's over or not, but I still see lots of games getting funded on it, so I say no. My big thing was setting realistic goals. Like our goal was always, and I think Kickstarter is way more valuable because there's something to it, right? You either get it or you don't. And so everybody's sick of GoFundMe because to me, I'm like, if nobody wants to give you money to back your thing, why am I going to give you a little bit and you'll keep it? So Kickstarter, we set realistic goals. I think we did 25, 50, 15, something like that. And we hit and exceeded all of them, so that was great. If you do it, the biggest thing is have people lined up to back because all of a sudden you'll get it's an outbreak, right? So if a bunch of people jump on, if you get 50 people in the first 2 hours, Kickstarter will bump you up. Our Aztec was actually a featured by Kickstarter game or a game they like or something like that. And a lot of it's just how much traction it gets in the first few hours. And literally, this is my other thing, don't expect it to go viral. Hopefully people don't have that as a strategy for anything, but when people are like, you just need somebody who's an influencer or whatever. Like, we've had people who are relatively big Twitter things, and it's great, you get some stuff, but it doesn't go crazy. This is another one of our things that we live in our inside is done is better than perfect. So like this, my co-founder wants this tattooed on everybody in our office. But if you're waiting until it's absolutely perfect to launch, you will never, ever, ever, ever launch your game because it will never be perfect. This is our game Spirit Lake. I love it. It was our very first game we were funded to do. It teaches It focuses on Dakota history. A lot of it's based, obviously, based on the name from Spirit Lake. It came out first version in 2013. We did a free an update in 2015. And we still have 24 bugs left to fix on it, right? If we kept waiting until every time we got rid of all these bugs, we would never, ever, ever launch our game. And that's kind of when you're a developer, it's kind of like that Zeno's paradox about Achilles and the tortoise, where it's like, you're almost there, and you're almost there, and you're closer, but you're never actually there. That's what doing the game's like. For us, we didn't have a choice, because we promised schools we would have it to them, and that was the best thing we could ever do. There was another game, educational game, was a social emotional learning game, and they literally had, I remember the time, it was $7.1 million, because I was really angry, because we didn't have $7.1 million, and they, blew through all of it, because they were just, it was going to be perfect, it was going to be better, and it disappeared, right? The game never even launched. I think they did one demo level, and it never launched. And that's because it was always going to be perfect, and every time I talked to people from there, because I knew some people, it's like, we just have to chase. Done is better than perfect. And no one will ever tell you your baby is ugly. And this is really, really important, especially when you're developing games. Because most people are nice, right? Like, people say, oh, people suck. No, most people are really nice. They don't want to hurt your feelings. They want to be encouraging and positive, right? So they'll say, oh, it's such a cute baby. And my baby's cute. But even if my baby looked like this, they would totally say the same thing. Oh, what big eyes he has, right? And that's the way people will treat your game, right? Because you made it, and you're so proud of it, and you come to people and you try to say, look at this game, what do you think? And they see your enthusiasm. And the last thing we want to do is, crush you, right? So they will say, when we, for example, we said we were going to build this game company, we're going to do it, and we're going to build games to close the math gap, we're going to focus on underserved communities, and it was the greatest idea ever, you should totally do it and get all this encouragement. And so then we start saying, okay, who wants to invest in it? And it's it's a totally great idea, but it's just not going to work for me. And so you have to realize, one, that also goes into finding the right people, but two, people are going to tell you encouraging things when you really want the truth. This is our game Fish Lake. This was the very first version that we did. It was very ugly. And then this was our update. And Eric, who over here right now he's the tribal historic preservation officer, but he was our cultural consultant, part of our early founding team, and he met with all the tribal schools, and he said to us, when he saw the update version, he said, man, this is great. Now I can tell people these games are good and I'm not lying, right? And we're like, well, why didn't you tell us this in the beginning? And he's like, well, you're just trying, what more did you want? So people aren't going to tell you that. They will usually tell you in retrospect, it's kind of like a relationship thing, with yeah, I knew you never should have been dating that person. You're like, why didn't you tell me? They're like, well, I didn't want you weren't listening. So always be aware of that, and if you're getting feedback on your games, make sure you're not saying, how cool is this? What do you like about it? Just be, we're lucky that we deal with middle schoolers, and no one is more willing to crush your, self-worth than middle schoolers. This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. That said, when they do tell us the truth, we know that they're also being blatantly honest. Also, don't fall victim if you only had. There will be people that say, oh, if you only had an Android version. Oh, well, but if you only had a version that, could then run offline on Android, whatever. There are certain people that will always tell you that your product is perfect and they would totally use it if you only had. And so you have to just kind of ignore that and think, okay, this is what we're focusing on. There's too many damn stakes. And this is a story that we live and die at our office. The experience you envision for users will never be their experience. Okay, you are looking at your game with a completely biased view no matter what you think, right? This is how developers think people are going to do it, and this is what actually happens when you put it in people's hands. And I use this story because this is Dennis, he's our CTO, and that's Gonzalo over there in the glasses, kind of furthest towards the bookshelf. Okay, they are amazing developers. But they are super into games, which is fine. But they, think things are easy when they're not. And so we've been telling them that there's these games that was a specific level in Fish Lake. It was just super hard. And I died every time I did it. And I'm playing the game, and I'm just swearing and cursing this game. And you don't know. People are really, really into games. And, super, whatever. Younger kids, they'll do no problem. So we're visiting a school. We make our developers go to school to test it, to watch and see how kids actually use it. And a little girl comes up to Dennis. She goes, "Did you make that game?" "Yeah, I did make that game." She's like, she starts poking him literally on the chest. "There are too many damn stakes. Did you try?" And she just covers her mouth like, "Oh my god," I just starts swearing. She goes, "But I tried to play that game. I died 15 times in a row. Do you think this game is fun? There is nothing fun about this game. I hate this game." And like went off. And all of a sudden Dennis was like, "Oh, okay." It was like all the things that we've been telling him suddenly clicked. Because when you have somebody who's this high telling you how much they literally hate your game because nobody can get through it, that's the problem. So after that, now everything has easy, medium, and hard levels, right? We also were testing Spirit Lake in school. It was the very first time. And we have this game, it says, "Follow the path, the way you came to begin the search for herbs," right? And so the first time we had a couple of days were set to test in schools. We sit down, first kid gets the game. We tested internally like 900 times, right? Like every way, get answers wrong, get answers right, turn left, turn right. First kid takes it, turns, runs straight off the edge until they go off the edge of the virtual world, right? Okay, well, we didn't see that coming. Second kid sits down, runs straight off the edge of the virtual world. Like there's all these arrows pointing which way to go. And by the third kid, we said, "Okay, we're great. We'll be back tomorrow." We went back and put in barriers, right? So that all of a sudden you just get redirected back to the path, or it hits the movie that's supposed to play. But those are the things that no matter how well you think you have figured it out, your actual users will do it completely differently. So, like I said, now you go out of the village. Doesn't matter which way you go, you're just going to end up getting the problem with the wolves running you up the tree no matter what. This study, the thing is 85% of usability issues can be caught by testers with can be caught by testing with 5 users. So 85% of the things that could go wrong, you don't need hundreds of people to test it. We do a lot of usability, and we do between 5 and 15. We usually do 10 to 15, and it catches 99% of it, to be quite honest. I mean, that's maybe not scientific. This is scientific. My 99% might not be, but the vast majority of everything that they encounter, you're going to catch with a couple of users. So it doesn't have to be a crazy number, but you definitely need people. So more people drive Fords than Ferraris, and that is the coolest, flashiest, most cutting edge, most amazing part of your game. That might not be the one that gets the most users. I love Fish Lake. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in 2 years building it out, and to get it to perfect. This game, literally, I was going to a conference and they said, "We need a game that runs on an Android tablet." And we had nothing that ran on Android whatsoever. So we slapped this together, I'm not kidding, in a matter of like, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. It's been our most successful game by like 3 to 4 times more users than anyone else, right? And it came down to, why is that? What makes it so sticky, right? Well, there's a couple different things. One, we were able to then bilingualize everything on it. Not make bilingual everything on that, right? It's a super easy game. The back end is really easy to swap assets out. We made a Spanish version. We made a Lakota version. We're making a Dakota version, right? We're able to take and repackage a whole bunch of content that we had from other games. And it was because it was super easy. I mean, Fish Lake, first of all, we had to get Fish Lake down to under a gigabyte to make it an iPad app, which just drove us crazy because it was like 1.4 when we put it as an install computer. This game we were able to make it, run across all platforms, run in a browser without an issue. We didn't have to deal with WebGL, all of these things. And so it's quicker. And most of the schools working with, they want easy solutions. Kids and parents who are using our games, they like the fact that they can drop in and pull out, and it's really super easy. So even though we thought that, and even though I love Fish Lake, absolutely, and I think it's our most beautiful game, or like most polished and everything to date, this is what's making us more money than the cost more. So games are never finished, only abandoned, and Dave Taylor, who worked on Doom and Quake, gave us this line that's from, I think, Art is never finished, ever abandoned, but it's completely true, right? Like, you come in, you have all of these ideas, like, I have like 15 games that we have sketched out literally on our boards. We did Forgotten Trail, we brought in, I think, 20,000 in Kickstarter for it. We have it all polished out, this is the part that's done, and then it kind of ends because we ran out of money. So we have part 1 done, and part 2, it says it's like coming soon, and that was 3 years ago, and then we got money to do other games, so we focused on those. But literally, we have all the artwork for it, everything to build it out. Someday I'll go back to it, but we just had to move Aztec's another series that we're doing. We have 7 of them sketched out. It's a kind of time travel thing. They go through the Mayan jungle and through history and what have you. So we had the first 2 done. Here's artwork for 1. 2 of them, it's like sitting in my Google Drive. Someday we will go back to it, hopefully. But games are literally never done. And the one thing that I've learned over the years, though, is if we had listened, this is another thing, if we listened to all the people who told us everything we were doing wrong and all ways we should be doing things differently, we wouldn't be here. We would have crashed and burned a long time ago. And so we built up games the way that we thought we should be building them and who we thought we should be building them for. And we probably could have gone and made a lot more money if we made like mobile games that were just kind of, super easy, super quick, super disposable kind of thing. But that's not what we wanted to do. So my big thing is find ways, no matter what everybody says and how you should do this and that, like find ways to build your name anyway, because that's what it's really all about, right?
Thank you so much.
If you have questions or anything, I'm either happy to do it here or
I have a lot of questions, but I'll just go one at a time. So, my first question though is, you said you have 11 people on your team, right? What are their positions and like what do they do and how they contribute to like all the projects and stuff? Like, do they have their own or do they?
So we do everything is kind of, we have people you can take. Well, we have about 6 are developers, and then we have art and some admin and myself. And so everybody kind of, we go back and forth, so it depends on what we're working on at the time. We do have certain games where it's kind of everybody has ownership of this. We've actually moved away from trying to work on too many games at a time. At times it'd be like we'd be working on 4 projects, right? And so we'd be making, maybe it'd be 25% done, but we'd be 25% done on 4 projects. So we have just merged all that. So we're working on single projects at a time, ideally, maybe 2 projects. So we went from having somebody who was an owner for all that to kind of combining it and having people just check in on what they're the owners for, but within the same project.
Yeah. So does that help with like the funding for each of those games and just kind of keeping those timelines like more achievable, or is that just?
For us it was just we were running into issues where things weren't getting done, and we'd run out of money on a project because we'd be working on too many ones at a time. So for us it came down to, we want to get this project done, we're going to put all of our energy into this, and then we had these other, and that's why those other games that Aztec and Forgotten School Part 2 were like on the back burner, because the money for them, we were kind of taking money and we were using the money for the project we were supposed to do, but then kind of like then also juggling other things in the background, and the quality of the games we were working on was going to start to suffer, and we saw that. And so we really wanted to say, okay, we love all of these games equally, but the people that are bringing us, the games that are bringing money, they get the priority. And so that's what we ended up doing that, because it just made more sense to focus on that, and instead of, like I said, I think a lot of times if you stretch yourself too thin, it becomes very apparent, both under code end and then on all your cosmetics.
So your users, customers, how much of that is classroom and how much of that is non-classroom?
Yeah, so we started the first 4 years, we were about 80-20. So 80% individuals and 20% schools, and now we've really started to see the shift. So we're about 80-20 in reverse. And so, it was interesting. We initially were going to just sell to schools, and then people started saying, well, can I buy your game? And my answer is yes. So we then it was really helpful for us, because one, we were able to get a bunch of users without, schools are very unforgiving, so we were able to get a bunch of users really quickly, that if it didn't work, fine, like not to say fine, but we felt bad, and we could go and fix those things, but it wasn't like you blew your chance with this school. And now, as we've grown, we've just seen that switch, and we have honestly kind of redirected our efforts more towards schools, because it's a lot bigger sales, so we can, bring in for what it would take us to get 1,000 individual users, we can get that in, one single sale.
So at the core of your business, what's interesting is like in the games market and mobile market specifically, there's kind of this ruthless kind of cutthroat, like eking out as much money as you can. There's kind of like this, you've mentioned like Games for Good and even being in edutech. Like, what's driving that? What's kind of like the mission of your company, and where did that start?
So for us, we thought a lot about it. It kind of came 2 different ones. So my co-founder, she was getting her PhD in the 80s, and she really wanted to create an educational game. She loved math, and she thought it was so much fun, and she wanted to build games, and technology didn't exist. So for her, it was because this is something she really, really would have loved when she was in school. For me, my driving factor was I hated math. And I I was fine at it, but it was not something I wanted to do. But when I look at what I do remember from school, educational games were a driving factor. And if you look at educational games, look at math worksheets and look at video games, right? You will get a kid to try a video game 50 times to get incrementally further, and you don't get that in education. So we thought if we could merge those two, that would really make a difference. And so that's where our kind of driving factor was, what do we wish we would have had, and how can we take that and apply it to, specifically for us, we're working in, and I say underserved, but the reality is we have kids across all demographics, but really what would help improve math scores for a lot of kids who nobody is really working to help improve math scores for. And that's where we started. And the thing is, we talk a lot about this a lot, and I think part of our business model is focusing on you can do good things with technology, and you can still make money, right? Because a lot of people, why don't you turn it into a 501c3 and do a non-profit? But we still are building as a business, and I think that's kind of the thing we say, it'd be nice to have a huge house, but you don't need your own island, right? But, this idea of changing this conversation in games in particular, it's so much about just quick cash, and I think there's so much more potential that hopefully we can be a small.
How do you quality control your game? Because with my perspective, education is traditionally books, teachers, and books have a bunch of quality control. I assume some don't, but then there's games, and it seems like how do you actually educate children properly and not mess up?
Right. Yeah. Well, so everything we do, we build out all the curriculum with teachers, and all the cultural stuff we build out with the tribe. So everything is vetted, right? So if it's about Dakota, it's been vetted by the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer. If it's about the Ojibwe, we have some elders who will come in and vet it. And they will say things to us like, the Ojibwe men wouldn't have worn here. You need to scrub that, or the dress needs to be longer. So we get all of that stuff on there, and then on the education side, we work with teachers to build out all of the actual content, and then they vet that with us. And the good thing about education is, with games, is you can change things. Now, for example, we work really hard to make sure we don't have to, because we had to say scrub the earrings after they're in every single scene. That's going to be pretty expensive, but you can kind of make changes and tweaks as you go along, and that's what we test with those 5 to 15 users really early and really often. And so that's how we kind of do that. And I think the thing with games in particular is they provide this platform where kids are going to engage with them, and they're going to give you the feedback that they probably aren't going to give you in a textbook. And so we're going to build that out.
You actually use that as a platform for testing?
Yeah, so we do that in a couple ways. One is we build in a lot of the assessment aspects of the game, so it would be like, the 2 hunters, they're 3 days apart, drag them to the fairest place to meet, and what's the fraction that signifies the fairest place. And so they'll drag that person to the middle, and that's actually, the drag and drop is actually part of the test-based assessment, the peer-based assessment that kids do. And so they're actually practicing those skills within the game. And then we record all of the data, so the teachers get a report at the end so they can see how the kids did. And then internally we'll look at the data too. So if, say, if a kid gets an answer wrong in our game, it's not just like someone in these other games shoot the right answer, and you shoot, it's like, what's 4 times 3? You shoot 9, and then it's just like, but it'll take them out and explain how to do it. And then we keep track internally. The whole thing for us is open choice, right? So much about gaming is what choice and what direction you go. It's like a video or something, and so, or a practice module or whatever. And so we can look at the data there, and then if everybody's choosing video, we know let's put more video in the game. So we're trying to do that as well.
Yeah, that's great if you could talk about, I believe you said 2 locations that you guys had, and I was wondering if you had any additional educational things that you were looking to explore, outside of just the video games, if there were after school programs, still staying within the same realm with you guys?
Yeah, so we have an office, so our development offices, we have one, our main development is in LA, and then we just opened an office in Minneapolis because the bulk of our users are kind of in this kind of upper Midwest area. And then we also have an office in Chile, because we've been out there for the last year. But yeah, so those are our offices. We grow. So when we started, it was just games and kind of education, and then we started building out curriculum around that. So using games, and this is the thing about games, Assassin's Creed is doing this too, so it's not just us, but there's so much cool educational content we have. And I don't know if you've seen the Assassin's Creed educational game, which is basically like they take out all of the killing and it's just kind of like the educational part. But so we had all these things, so we started building out curriculum about that, and then teacher resources, and now we're doing both game development with a whole bunch of different with classrooms and also after school programs, and we're going to do one with the group in Bismarck in a couple of months. But so to build that out, and I think for us, because like I said, coming from going LA, Minot, Jamestown, LA, I saw how much different, and I was a freshman in high school in back, and I saw how much different access there was and opportunity, and my daughters would just move, like, if they wanted to go to Hulu, they just go to Hulu, like, they know, everybody's parents work there, and you see how different that is, and like, oh yeah, Naughty Dog, they're just the floor below us, and whatever, and so really for us it was then looking at, creating games that bridge that gap, but also looking at ways to then, and with Native and Hispanic kids, we really started to see, like, Fish Lake is based on Turtle Mountain, right? And the very first, so we went in, we were piloting, and the kids at one school, the grandmother character comes on, and she starts talking, and you would not believe it, they jump up, right? Like, all of a sudden, because the voices are from there, right? They've never, ever heard anyone with a Turtle Mountain accent, and right? And I shocked them, right? And they're like, hey, that's my grandma. No, it's my grandma. There's nobody in the class is grandma. But we started a conversation with them about, like, well, how do you make this game? And how does it do that? And like, oh, you want to be a rocket scientist? And so we really saw that as a way to start, like, facilitating these conversations with groups of kids who traditionally, like, the idea of saying, like, I want to be a game developer is like saying, like, I want to go to Mars to a lot of these kids. And so ways that we can use games then as a conversation starter or, to expand their interest and look at game development. So we kind of have added all these things on as we've gone. So we went from games to curriculum to now this game development design program, and they Skype in with us, or we're on site sometimes, but they'll Skype in and they'll tell us what they think. Like I said, sometimes it's amazing. We've added some really cool ideas, like, we should have powwow music when we enter the village. And we're like, yes, we should, done. And then there's other things like, you should have zombies. And I'm like, well, that really worked. But, you start this conversation, and then when they see those changes, like, that just shifts everything too. It's like, oh my God, I could really make these kind of impact in games. And so that's kind of what I really like too, is like, not just what we imagine, but then they can be part of that process.
So I don't know if it's been asked already or not, but when I was in college, undergrad for game design, one of the classes that I struggled a lot with my professor, it was in serious game design. And what is your take on how you guys make a game? Like, what's the purpose of the game between the content you're trying to teach them and, let's say, the fun factor?
Yeah, that's an ongoing debate at all times, both with us, with the teachers, right? Like, I always want to build out the narrative and the world, and then my co-founders are like, we need more math. And teachers, we ran into really early on. Like, if it was too much game, teachers were like, this isn't teaching them anything. And if it was too much math, kids were like, this is not a game, right? Like, kids are smart. And so we found 2 minutes is the compromise. So they would do 2 minutes now, like, they'll do a problem, and usually the idea is they don't get the problem right. The first 2 problems we built in. So the first time we did a game, 90% of the kids got the first problem wrong in the game. Okay? Then we said, okay, well, how can we fix this? So we went back and we walked the problem back too. So the first problem is super easy. It's like the game focused on division, the first problem is subtraction. The next problem is 2-digit multiplication. By the time they got to division, it was the same problem. Still the same number of kids roughly got it wrong, and we saw 70% of the kids try it again and again, right? Because we built up their enthusiasm, their confidence, right? And so that's how we started to build that out, and we figured, okay, so we have about 2 minutes, but the goal is to improve, right? And so what do you do in good games? You learn the skills that you need to figure out, you apply those skills to get to the next level, and so we built the education around that, so hopefully they get the problem out, because then we can teach them within the context of the game. If they don't, then they go on to our next game. So it's about 2 minutes of gameplay, 2 minutes of problem solving. And it's one of those negotiations where nobody's really ever happy, but both teachers are willing to use it and the kids are willing to use it if we have it about that. But it is, and we've been trying more and more and more to build it within the context, right? So it's not just you do it, but like you have these kids, or it's like instead of what's 8 times 3, it's like you have 8 sick people in the village, you need 3 of each herb or an epidemic spread. Then they go out, they run around, they have to, defend, they do, you get chased up a tree by wolves, and there's a little first-person shooter practice to figure out how many arrows you need, and then they go out and they get the pub. So it's all integrated within the story, and we're doing more and more of that because that's really, I think, serious game design is where you can see more of that. And the problem is you don't see as much of it because it's super expensive to do. It's so much easier to do a shoot the right answer to go through the door, oh, wrong answer, but really integrating that. But so yeah, that's where every day we're trying to build that.
A professor that would be interested in reading a paper that if you write one on that, I would definitely send it to him just because that was the biggest thing is like it was always content first and then focus on if this game's worth playing. So it's
right. And you have to have some education in your educational game, and I think there's some crazy, like 100,000 educational app games in the App Store. Now most of them are not educational at all, and that's the big problem, but there really does need to be that balance. But ultimately, I think for us, if it doesn't teach them anything, then it's not really an education game, it's just a game. And so yeah, but it's an ongoing struggle because, like I said, it's never done. Like every day I'm like, what a good one. Move on. Yeah, but
Since we're on that topic, I was just curious, what do you think about Kerbal Space Program as an educational game?
About which one?
Kerbal Space Program?
I'm not that familiar with that. No.
It's a space simulation game where you just build rockets with like cartoony little characters that pilot them and maybe blow up.
Maybe all
Yeah.
So my thought is it depends on how it's used, right? Like Minecraft alone is not educational at all. My daughter plays Minecraft and there's nothing educational about what she's doing. And I could pretend like, oh, she's doing the spatial and whatever. Like there's not. Okay, she's like, oh, I tamed this buffalo named Larry, right? Okay, there's not an education, but if you can like build that into a curriculum, and that's why we started building a lot of these modules around it, then there's value to it, I think. And I think part of the problem with a lot of games is that people say they're educational because they seem educational, but there really needs to be a what's the learning objective, in my opinion, what are you learning from it, and how can you then apply that elsewhere? Now, and so that to me doesn't sound like I'm learning that much, but I think there's a potential for it. Like, if you're dealing with trajectory, you're dealing with all these other things, if you can build a curriculum around that, and I hope that we start to see more of that, like in education, because there's a lot of ways you can use games to teach lots of things, right? Like, I love using just Tetris as an example of failing, right? Because you can never win Tetris. Like, you just go until you fail. And I use that a lot of times in classrooms with kids, like, but you try again because it gets harder, right? So there's value to things, but then whether it teaches or not, to me, that's the question for education.
With that in mind, the reason I found Kerbal Space Program to be like educational, I don't feel like it's educational in the actual gameplay, but because of the gameplay, I went on my own and learned about like delta V and calculating like trajectories and things like that. And so I learned the math behind the game from outside of the game. Like the game doesn't tell me like this is how a trajectory is calculated, this is how you calculate delta V, this is how this works. It was just like, I'm curious how I can make the best rocket in the game, and it just kind of like you fail to get to the moon 2 or 3 times, and the next thing you know, you're like sitting with this huge formula on the side, and kind of going from there. But it's not like built into the game, I guess.
And that's what I think when I say you could use it as a jumping off point, then there could be a lot of educational value to it. I think that's where, it comes down to then the role of teachers or a parent or whoever it is, or just a person wants to go jump up and learn from there. But I think there's a lot of potential. I just think so many games stop at that, right? Like there's this potential and you could teach, but it doesn't. And that's why I think it's really kind of cool. I remember when, 3 or 4 years ago, when the folks at Assassin's Creed were talking about how can we have all this really cool educational content, right? Like all these really cool things, like, this is the Colosseum and all these things built out. How can we make that educational, right? Because honestly, and I mean, my daughter's 11, I'm not going to have her run around playing Assassin's Creed. So my 7-year-old especially got, right? And so, but there's so much potential there, and so by building the game, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically like you just go and explore their virtual world, then you can create some of that, but it has to figure out what's the educational goal, and then how can you make that happen, and I think a lot of education games fall short, but hopefully we'll see that.
Do you have like a spectrum for your own games within that area, or are you like very solid in like one methodology? Like, is there a lot of tangential learning in your games, or do you just have like a very defined curriculum in all of them, or is there some games that are some way or the other way?
So we have a couple of different things. So in most of our games, all of our games we did want to align to standards, because the feedback we got from teachers is like, I don't even know what this thing teaches, right? Like not from just us, but schools in general. And teachers have accountability, and people say, oh, even if your statement doesn't do Common Core or whatever, like every school has to teach multiplication, right? Or division or fraction. So we aligned all of the math to those specific standards to make it as easy as possible for teachers, because if they're the people using it, we want them to know if the kid has mastered, if they're on level 4, that means they've covered, multiplying like parameters, right? So we really built that out with a focus on that for schools. But we had different ones. And then the one that I showed, the one that's our best seller, is much more, it's kind of options. And you can pick if you want to do language arts, if you want to do social studies, if you want to do math, and then you do these activities and they're kind of mini games, and then you get points and you can build out your virtual wigwam, which they will play things for hours just to buy little things. And so instead of currency, they solve math problems or do these activities. And that one is much more, they can kind of go where they want to go. So we've kind of gone back and forth. But for us, we really wanted to be clear, here's what we're learning. And my daughter, there's a website, and she was playing this game, it's a math game, and I was like, what do you learn from it? She's like, I don't know, nothing, I think. Like, we don't want kids to come away from that being like, I don't know, nothing. I think we want it to be very clear, like, I learned how to multiply 2 one-digit numbers or whatever. Because I think it is important, and we talk a lot about not hiding the education, right? Like, a lot of games want to hide it. Like, I want you to know that you learned how to multiply this, and this is why, right? Because if you have 3, you have to feed your whole tribe for the winter, and everybody eats a third of a buffalo, and you have 30 people, how many buffalo do you need? Because I don't want you to just be doing mathematical, algebraic thinking, whatever. I want you to know algebra. Because when somebody says, this is an algebra problem, I want you to go, oh, I know how to solve that. And so for us, we put it in context because that's really important. But we also want to be very clear it's educational, because otherwise, then what is the education? It's so questionable. So that for us has been a real big focus, is that you know what you learn.
That's one of the things that's interesting too about designing it with the curriculum in mind. Just because I think about Mr. Miyagi, the Karate Kid, right? Wax on, wax off, but he doesn't know he's learning how to block and parry and stuff like that. And so, but then it's that practice and then application is where I think there's a lot of growth. Do you have any, so you talked about a couple of the markets that you're already targeting. Do you have any growth that you're looking for market-wise, or there's certain areas of the education spectrum that you haven't touched that you want to touch?
So we're out here, we opened an office in Minneapolis because we really do believe kind of this area, like from Wisconsin and Montana, that's like our sweet spot. And I was talking to someone else, they worked for Apple in education. I was like, you're the only other educational person. He's like, you're the only other educational person that I've ever encountered that has actually been to, Fort Berthold, North Dakota, or Belport. Or I was like, well, that's good for me then. But I think there's a lot of these markets where they're not getting it, right? Like they're not getting the educational software that they need, and so that's really our big focus. And then, like I said, Latin America has been really good for us. The U.S. educational market is a disaster in that, and I say that I was talking to someone from the Department of Education. What could we do to maybe help games? I was like, well, it's chaos. He's like, I know, that's really tough. And I was like, well, I know the role of the U.S. Department of Ed, but I'm like, if they have no insights into what can help, there's nothing I'm going to do. But other countries, right, like Trinidad and Tobago, like they want it, they will sign it. Every single student on that island, in whatever grades it is, that's part of their curriculum. So for us, Latin America just makes a lot of sense in that, we're not abandoning our markets here, so we're seeing growth in this area. And like LAUSD is $2 million to get in front of as a software purchase marketing firm, like to get those meetings. I'm like, that's stupid to me. If I could take $2 million, I could do so much more with it than spend it on marketing money for them. So for us, like I said, our big focus is Midwest, and we'll expand out from here is kind of our plan. And then Latin America, just because they're not quicker sales, but when you close that sale, it's the whole country. And the cool thing, and for better or for worse, because it kind of drives me crazy, because 65% of educational software licenses are never used, ever. They're not even open, right? Like the paper never opened, and only 10% are used regularly. But the thing about education is once you make that sale, it's a 93% renewal rate. So you've sold that license and you can go back and sell. And we actually had schools where we sold the license, we sent the invoice just because we do an automated invoicing every year, and they paid us again, and we went back and looked and they'd never opened the license. So from a And we actually, in those cases, we literally don't do it for the schools. We say, like, keep your license when you're ready to use it, we'll go back and do it. But the thing is it's really important to us that kids are actually using it. Because who cares? Like, as bad as it sounds, like, obviously I want money, but I don't want to be selling products that aren't going to ever help kids. So, and the good thing is when you do that, then they usually do go and try and use your games, and we've been happy with the result of that. Okay,
Yeah. Just make sure it's me. You mentioned how the game is not finished, right?
Mhm.
It's never finished, you just gotta watch it.
Right.
I'm just wondering, like, if, say you have a lot of emotional investment in the game, right? I'm sure you have, for especially your first game.
Right.
Like how do you not feel like just complete tension knowing that you have all these unfinished products out? Like, how do you do you feel like terrible every single day? Like, you know what I mean?
See,
Like I feel like I feel awful.
right. See, well, so I came from, I guess the best thing that happened to me is I came from a newspaper background, right? So like there you have to submit your story every day, right? Like it has to go, and at 9 o'clock, if it's not in, then there's a big hole in the newspaper, and that doesn't bode well for you. So I kind of had to get over that, but it's the absolute worst feeling, and every day you feel like you could have done more. And so when I got into games, the best thing that ever could have happened for us, even though we literally thought we were going to die, like the night before we piloted in our first school, everybody on our team was up till 5 o'clock. Like, and it had to be at school at 7. So, but we had to have something in their hands, so we made that promise, and you can't go into a class and be like, well, but it was the worst feeling, right? And you're giving it to people, and in this case, and now I look back at it, the first 3 schools we piloted with, part of our deal was like, you have it for free forever, right? And like, still, now we go back to them, we're like, oh, I'm so sorry, but it's so buggy, and it's so terrible, and it's the worst feeling. But I look at it as like, it's kind of like practice, right? So you go and you practice through training, and it sucks, and it hurts, and then it can get a little better, and you just kind of keep doing it. And the thing is it really is true, like, you could always make it better, and are able to do that. But it sucks, man. Like, I look back at that first game, and I, like, cringe. Like, you want to say, like, oh, I loved it so good. No, I'm so ugly, and I'm so, like, apologetic to, But once you get it out there, then you can start making it better. And the other thing that we have learned is there's a lot of things like, there's other parts where it's like, we have Easter egg videos that we want to put in, and they're even done, we just didn't get around to putting them in. But nobody knows 95% of the stuff that's supposed to be in there that you see wrong, they didn't even know it was going to exist, right? So it's like, and I think for us, the big thing that came is when we did Making Camp, which is the app, I thought it was kind of ugly, to be honest. It's gotten better, we've really gone through and done it, but like, first, and I still think it's not nearly as pretty as our 3D games that are like the virtual world and all that. Like, nobody seems to care but me. Like, so that's the thing, is like, you get super invested, but nobody else is invested at all, right? So they don't come to it with the same like attachment that you do. And once you put it out there, like, it does suck because you see that, but then the really cool thing too, people playing it like in their hands, and they can give you feedback, and they can improve it, and then you can improve it, and that's the cool part. Like, I would have never been able to do on my own. But it's totally like just ripping off the Band-Aid and just like putting it out there, and like, I got to cover your eyes. I literally, we had a few times where it was like, the first time we tested, and like, they got there and like there was a part of it didn't work, right? There was only one that did. So we'd be like, okay, just look over. Literally, our developer would sit there and like skip the part over for the kid. No, so we were fine. They had tested at this point, so it was fine. But it was like, that's where it was like that bad, and now we look at it, it's like, also gives you like a reference point. So like, oh my god, remember when it was that bad? Like, now it's way better. Like Eric said, I can say this and I'm not lying anymore, So that was really good. But yeah, it totally sucks. And every game we do, I'm so emotionally invested, and we internally set deadlines. Like, this is publishing on this date, and like, we publicize it, we put it out there. So if it doesn't go out on that date, everybody knows it. And that fear of like missing the deadline, it kind of drives us to put it out. But that would be really good. We didn't set deadlines. We didn't actually, we didn't have schools lined up that we promised to. We probably didn't ever back because people always make it back. But then you never make any money. Or nobody plays it. What's the point of playing games? Just having dates for just
I'm trying to think of the demo right now.
That's okay. I'm totally bored. So
Are you like proud of any of your games? Like,
Oh,
you know what I mean?
all of them.
That's
It's
what
kind
I'm
of like my
trying.
babies. Yeah, like Fish Lake is my absolute favorite game that we've done, and I think it's beautiful. I think it's great. I actually love making camp because making camp. Like one day, I went up to my daughter. My daughter's 11. And it was about she was probably 9, and I just released it. And I was like, she's in her room, and I was like, I told you to get off the iPad, and I go up to her bed. And and she's playing our game, right? Like, how cool is that? And I'm like, okay, you still have to go to bed, but like she's playing it without me telling her she had to go do it. So I'm proud of everything we do. I could always make it a little bit better, but then I have something to kind of pretend in my head I'm going to go back and do, and I know I'm not because I got 4 other games coming out. So that's the thing. I am, and it's just it's kind of, and it is kind of like it's like the kids like. I have 3 kids, and I love all of them equally, and they have different good things and bad things about them, and that's the way our games are. Like, Fish Lake is beautiful, but, it's more expensive, and it's harder to run on things, and it'll probably never stream online, you know what I'm saying? Versus, like, making camp, which, like, everybody can use, we can quickly make it in several different languages, and so all those things kind of go in, and you just gotta figure out, I love all of our games, but there's certainly things about all of them that I'm like, if I had an unlimited amount of time and money, and I would go back and change them, but, it's cool to see people play with you. Like, my favorite part about when I do a lot of creative is, what's your favorite? My favorite part is, like, get things that, like, this is the coolest part about making games, right? Like, you have things that only exist in your head. Like, literally nobody else knows about it. And then you can translate it into something that people have in their hands. You get to interact with it. Like, how cool is that? Like, most people, like, they don't get to do that. And so that, to me, is, like, what I love about my games and what I love about every one of my games. Like, this existed, and then when it comes out, something that is exactly like you imagine, that's amazing. And then other times when, like, I'll have our artist do it, and it's not at all what I imagined, but it's 100 times better, then that's really cool, too. And so, I think that's the thing, you just kind of have to look at, like, what's the best part of it, and making games just do it.
Okay, so 2 questions. The first one, I could ask a lot of questions. This is really fun. Thank you so much. I guess the first one is, okay, you talked about ideas, so it's like you get a grant. They're probably saying, like, hey, like, make a game that serves this curriculum, right? And you get that funding. But then you, as the designer of the game, created the game project. You talked a little bit about this kind of collection of ideas that you have. Explain that process a little bit, how you can take maybe a historical or cultural thing, and then maybe like a math or science curriculum, and fuse them together. Like, what does that look like for you?
Well, and it's funny, I have a slide I always show when I do like presentations to schools and kids, and it's like high tech starts so low tech, right? Like, I have this picture where it's like literally a stick figure person that I did, and a girl did. And our process starts, we go in and we have 4 big, huge Post-its, right? And we say, okay, usually we have an idea of what the game is going to be. For example, we're doing a game, we're hoping to do one on kind of like epidemics, right? Like teaching epidemiology, right? So it's something we have in the works. And so we thought, okay, well, that was kind of like the focus there was math within that context. Okay, so then we started, okay, well, what is this? And we draw from history because, like, there's 9 million different things to go from there. So we thought, okay, well, 2 epidemic, the conquest, right? Like Aztec, that era, there's epidemics there. So then we were able to pull from that. And then once we kind of have that theme, we just start running with, okay, what are the concepts we want to teach? Okay, basic statistics. So certain things, then we just pull from that. And it's really crazy how quickly it comes together kind of in the design process. Now, in the actual execution process, it takes a lot longer, but we usually have 3 or 4 people, 3 or 4 teachers, and then 2 of us on the design side. And we just say, like, what do we want to do? And it just starts to really come really quickly. And a lot of it will never ever make it in there, but some of it does. So, and yeah, for us, I think having a focus of, we know, the worst part is like, you have this blank sheet. And so once we figure out the topic that we're going to do, then we can kind of run from there. And we do a lot of research. I mean, for us, I think that's a big thing because we're in education. But yeah, so that's kind of what we do. And then for me, the hardest part sometimes is figuring out like how to write the narrative around the content. But I think it's one of those things that gets way better. Like the first one, and we've gotten better at building it out. So for Spirit Lake, we had the problems and there was 0 story really there. And then everything we done with building the storylines, it's 100 times easier to build it in. And we talk about this even just when you're getting feedback. Like if you have a finished product and you ask people for feedback, you're not really asking for feedback, you're asking for permission, right? Like, do you like this, yes or no? Whereas if you really are doing it from a very ground up stage, like from day one, if they give you feedback, you want to change that. And so that's what we do a lot of times too, is we run the narrative by people like, what do you think about this? And sometimes we'll be like, well, no, that sounds really boring. Or maybe you should have them do buffalo hunting instead of deer hunting, or whatever it is. Or maybe instead of, for example, we were going to initially do the Middle Ages for an epidemic. And someone's like, well, yeah, but that's been really done. So maybe if you look at, the fall of the Aztec Empire, and so building those things out, you start to get that, and then you can kind of.
Second question. You talked a little bit about Kickstarters, but like the sales and marketing funnel in general. And I know Kickstarter is a big part of that, just even seeing that as a marketing opportunity. What does that look like for your team? Are you cold calling schools?
We don't, because I found, and I think cold calling doesn't work at all in my experience, and we've churned through a lot of salespeople, not a lot, but we've gotten better at churning through people more quickly, and that it's not going to work. So we found a lot of what hasn't. Cold calling doesn't work for us. Referrals is a big thing, so we were pushing a lot of referrals. When we did Kickstarters, the whole focus of our Kickstarters was obviously like money, but the real focus for us was like the marketing visibility, because you use it as like, hey, it's a good excuse to literally, there was one I did, the last one I did, I went through and I like reached my personal email and I clicked everyone I've ever emailed, right? Like, I don't even know, it was like 7,000 people, right? And I was like, hi, you probably don't even know who I am, having me, but so it's just a good way to like touch point with people. And the thing is, especially early on, like, people are excited about what people are trying your days out. And so for us, that's been a really big thing, is like, get the people who are excited and get them to then, pass on to other people. For us, for schools, like, I can call a school 10 times and get nowhere, and then, then somebody else can refer us, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, hi! Oh, I'm sorry I haven't gotten back to you, or, I forgot, it's like 10 years, and, or 3 years trying to connect. So for us, it's been a big thing, referral. And then parents, if people's kids like it, like, the best referral that you can get is somebody else who likes it, and people's like kids, if they can get their kids to do math, like the amount of referrals we got, like, yeah, my friend said that their kid was actually doing their math, so I wanted to do this. So I think like good products is also a good way to do it. And the truth is, it's really slow, and I absolutely hate the marketing and sales part, but like I like the money part. So it's kind of we're balancing the two of those, but. Yeah, and that's why we went educational sales more than individual sales, because it's like, the hunting elephants versus hunting rabbits, like, we can get one really big sale, and that'll make it a lot easier.
That's what I was curious about, like the companies that sell homeschool curriculums, not really focusing on homeschoolers themselves, but the people that sell textbooks and stuff like that. If it's possible for a partnership or not, so.
Yeah, and our big thing, like I said, we've done a lot of different partnerships, and we're always looking at doing new ones, and I think hopefully the biggest thing, I think, if somebody wants to come out and be like the educational salesperson channel, like, there's so much need for that. And I think so many games, and this is the one thing I kind of hate about games, and education in particular, but it's like everybody's developing in their own little bubble, right? And like, they're developing their game and their thing, and they're going to sell their thing. But the reality is, like, my game is not the solution to everything. It won't be. It can't fix all the things in education. Like, it can help teach fractions, and it can help teach, multiplication. You can do these things, but like, you don't have one book, you don't have one app. And so I think in games, and I would say it's true across a whole bunch of things, everybody's working on their thing. But the way that I think things are really going to change is if everybody kind of came together and was saying, like, you fit this need, you fit this need, you fit this need. And instead of looking at it as a zero-sum game, look at it as like a collaborative endeavor. So that's what I hope to someday see. And I haven't really seen, we've even reached out to people like, would you like to partner and things, but we haven't seen that yet. But I think that's really the only way educational games are going to get anywhere, because the way the U.S. market is, you can chip away at forever and you run out of money because it costs a lot of money. And you win games for a long time, we've been fortunate that we've gone from like bleeding money to, not bleeding money, but losing money to now like making money, and so it's a nice feeling, but then there's still so much more to do, and so much more we could do if we had more money. But I do think the best thing that ever happened to us was we didn't get a lot of money in the game, because I've seen so many people crash and burn. Like, we had a ping pong table in the office and scooters that we were like. Whereas we had to really think early on, like every single decision we made and every single thing that we did, and that was like why probably we're still around 7 years later, and a lot of these other people who had $7.1 million never released.
So I got 2 questions for you. The first one is talking about starting small and then scaling. Is like, how did that look scalability? Because you talked about 2015 where you quit your full-time job, and like taking the company with that seed money and stuff like that moving forward. And then the second part of that is what's the long tail vision for you guys?
How do we grow? Is that what you're point?
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we quit and we said, okay, how are we going to focus on this? The biggest thing and it was kind of really scary, but once you kind of pull that safety net, like we were like, whoa, now we're like, so we really focused on improving our product and really focused on sales. So 2015, when we hired our first salesperson, 2016, we let that person go because they didn't sell anything. That's when we really started to focus on sales. And I think the first few years, it's really easy. If you're really trying to build a company, is to focus on product all the time, right? Because you can make that progress all the time, and it's dependent on you, and you can make it a little bit better every day. But the one thing is, and there's a quote, I can't remember which one of the Google guys it was, but it was one of them who said, the thing about when you're making Google is I realized that every day we were making it a little better. So even if somebody didn't look at it today, the next time they looked at it, it would be a little bit better. And so that's kind of the product in. I was like, good. It's like, you're able to sell and say, okay, you haven't checked sell. Checked out 6 months. So people, when they see you're making progress, then they start to really be interested in it. And then people, especially in games, it's like a huge bandwagon effect, right? Like, and we got exposed to running into it. It was like, why did you do a Lakota game, not a Dakota game? And I'm like, well, here's what the cost is to customize out that language. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, here you go. And so it's kind of people really start to see when they see the traction. And in educational games in particular, they want to know you're going to be around, right? So if I use my curriculum and then I build it around that and you're dead in a year and a half, then there's no value to me. So once we've shown that you're around, that was the biggest thing, is like about 3 or 4 years in, when we would say we've been around for 4 years, people start to think, okay, maybe you'll still be around, and we're growing more games, and then people start to, the best thing for us, we did our very first pilot, and the first year we did it, and the results showed kids who play our games improved 30% in 10 weeks. Control group, they improved 10%. So we had 3x improvement. We were so excited, but my co-founder is a statistician, so it could be 9 million things, right? It could be a Hopper effect, it could be all these different variables. And so the next year we went out to do it again, and we said, okay, we'll do it. And the superintendent said, no, you don't understand. Because we had a control group on the school and an experiment in the district. He's like, this is a small town. It's like, I'm an appointed official, right? He's like, if these people at this school find out that these people at this school have a game, and you can't, and I'm not letting, and their kids' math scores going, you can't use it because these people in California need it for research data. Like, I will not be here long. So they're like, that's okay, it's cool. So we went down, we'll just go to the next town down. And we couldn't get a school within 60 miles willing to be our control group. We could only get schools that were willing to pilot and be the experimental group. And so for us, that just showed that power of word of mouth, and how when you have something that works, you do get that referrals. And that's why I think, I really think that, like I said, I could take it, like this area where we are right now, the schools are targeting it, that's the big thing, because there are two for every school, but there's a lot less. And so even though, and I think you're starting to see this shift in rural communities and in smaller cities, this shift towards education, or towards technology, where it's been a little bit slower just because the bandwidth hasn't been there, or everybody's using Chromebooks, which there's a lot of schools where you shouldn't be using Chromebooks because the connectivity is not there. But now you're seeing this shift, and so I think that a lot of schools that haven't had a lot of technology are now able to use it, and so that's been amazing. If you're positioned right, you can see that. And with games, I think they're willing to do it if they know it works. And there's a lot of people jaded because a lot of games don't work. But you're starting to see, like, if something does, that's a good thing. Everybody else sucks. If most people are failures, then the bar is pretty low. So once you get people to use it, like, wow, this is better, then it's good. But you have the problem is so many times you're jaded because your competitors do that.
That was the next question going to that. Sorry, Jen. Did you just talk about the bureaucracy and that, the competition and stuff like that, but have you guys had any objections or concerns recently with, like, who talking about video game addiction and our lovely video game violence conference?
It's funny. So the place, so we have games where, okay, there's a part where it's like, oh, you've been, if you get your canoe to the by the water too long, you get killed by a bear, right? Like, that's why you're supposed to not just sit there and do nothing. And so we have two versions. We have a person where there's like blood, but it's not blood, it's just like a red line. And we have a person where they just look like they're asleep, bears over them. Because some schools are like, you can't have blood. We do a part where it's like a first person shooter where you're hunting buffalo and things like that. In LA, people are never, like in the Midwest, it's like, they're like, yeah, because what do you think they did? Like, how did you get buffalo in the winter, right? Like, you shot them with a bow and arrow. We're not like, and literally, if you see, it's like, the buffalo goes, and then flips over, right? Like, and so, depending on the areas regionally, it's been different, it's been interesting, like, oh, there's a part where we have our app store rating is like 14 and up or whatever, because there's, in Fish Lake, because there's deer hunting, no blood, it's just like, that's it. And then there's fish. We're also killing fish because you do spearfishing. But we haven't really run into issues there. So it depends on the market. Like culturally, it's like, how do you think Dakota lived? Like, how do you think they got their food, right? So, and in Oregon Trail, you used to hunt buffalo, right? Like, don't carry back more, shoot more than you can carry. So those markets, so that's part of too why we were like, we're not taking it out, right? Somebody's like, can't you just be friends with the deer? Like, who walks up to a deer and is friends with them, right? So in some markets we have, some markets we haven't. There was a part in Spirit Lake that we did take out because it's like how the Dakota, it said something about tobacco. And it's obviously not like tobacco, but it was just like, nope, the word tobacco can't be used in schools at all. And that was enough pushback that we did take it out. But some of the other stuff were like, look, if you don't want to use it because there's deer hunting with no blood, then like, so be it. Like history was way worse than that. So we kind of, and that's the other thing we talk about is like, when we figure that all the time too, when we're doing a game on the Mayas and the Aztecs, we're working through that series and like, how much do you have to definitely be true to what's going on, but then in an age-appropriate way without sanitizing it. And that's like internally a lot of conversations we have, and a lot of people are not comfortable with some of the truths that just are there. In Spirit Lake, there's a part where the settlers, like the army comes and they're throwing teepees in the fire, and they're like, "How could you show that?" Like, it happened, right? That's how history works. Like, you can't rewrite history, or we're not willing to rewrite history. And so there's gonna always be some maybe pushback from that, but like, I think we're in a good spot because we can say like, well, that's history, so too bad. I mean, exactly. There's some schools that teach very questionable things. Yep.
So this isn't a question, but it's when you guys are talking about the importance of referrals and the frustration of getting in the sales part. When you have the one that comes to Merton Prairie hasn't already prepped you on this. The last question is, what is a community can we do to help you? They ask that for everybody. And they also generally prep the speakers to not be like very Midwest nice and just say, have your answer be, hey, just keep on being nice and doing what you're doing. So like, be prepared that if they're like, in North Dakota, for example, if you really need to get into more classroom, you need this, like, be prepared to talk to that.
I'm that person who, when people say, if there's anything we can do, and I'm always like, there is. So, no, yeah.
So say it tomorrow, just don't say, like, just keep being yourself, Fargo.
Right.
Don't waste your time on that. So.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I think that's nice. It's the only way any company is ever going to grow, right? It's like if other people are helping each other. But yeah, no, I'm right to say, because I think that's, a lot of times people are too scared to ask, and they feel like, oh, no, like that's how we've grown. We ask schools, will you give us a referral? And they're like, yes, they do. But yeah, that's good to know. But yeah, I've got a whole list of things. What? Okay.
As a smaller game company, well, you're funded mostly by grants and whatnot, so you're not being pressured by publishers and whatnot. How much do you bend or give into requests or demands such as review blood or whatnot? What is the pushback? Like, no, not happening, or how much do you flex?
So the truth is very little. It depends. So it depends on what stage, right? Like in the early stages, if teachers say change this, we will. Our rule is we don't change any one thing for any one person, right? So if it comes back a lot, like maybe 4 or 5 times early on, we'll change it. We've gotten really more forceful on that, and where I said, don't fall victim to if you only have, because in the beginning we did that a lot, right? Like oh, if you only had it as whatever. And those people, then you have it, and the bar just keeps moving. And you're like, okay. So I just ignore all of those requests. And so what we do is, like, for the things with tobacco that come up, like, there was enough schools that said, even if the word tobacco, even if it's not, when we're talking about, like, tobacco and cigarettes, like, that just, it's a no-go zone in school. So we took that out. There were other things, like I said, we're not going to take out the deer hunting if we're talking about how many, how they fed the entire village, and that's the heart of the game, and, like, that's take it or leave it. And we've been lucky in that schools, for the most part, haven't had a problem with it, and like I said, I think it's very culturally reflective too. Because I think, we piloted at a school, and the woman came in and she did the hunting, and she hit every single wolf with one arrow. And she's like, yeah, well, I'm a bow hunter. I go on the weekend. The trajectory is exact, because our developer was like super excited about making the exact trajectory. So when you have people who can then understand the cultural content of your game, you don't have to make changes, and there's people that won't get it, and then they don't get it. And we have enough games like that have, like, for example, making camp, and it's for younger kids. Like, that one doesn't have any of that stuff. The older kids games, and especially as we get to the middle school stuff, you have kids who are playing things where you're like, well, like Call of Duty, all these things where you're like blowing people up. So if the schools are really trying to engage with kids on where they are, like, we're not going that crazy, but you have to realize, like, if you want a game, and what our goal was initially, and in some ways, so, like, we're never going to have, some, super, competing with the biggest labels out there, right? Like, I went to GDC, it's like, you go there and you walk around, it's like, Blizzard has, like, built out, an exhibit bigger than this block or whatever, right? Like, we're never going to be that, but we want to be able to kind of compete enough, like, in kids' minds, like, not that they think, oh, this is World of Warcraft, but they think, like, oh, this game's pretty cool, as opposed to, like, a little, like, 8-bit, thing, or whatever that they're going to hate and say, like, no. So, for us, we say in schools, like, we're trying to get kids engaged by giving them stuff that reflects what they're using in their free time. And our goal is to have things that kids really want to play. When the kids walk into a classroom, they're like, hey, what are we doing? And so on the reservations, they call them native games. Like, are we playing native games today? Like, that's what we want. And so you're going to have to kind of, like I said, we're not going to go crazy, but, like, you gotta meet kids somewhere, because if it sucks, then you're not going to play. Nobody gets what they want. So, there's a lot of things that we would go way and push, not crazy, but there's things we would certainly push the envelope more, but we don't have a choice, because we know the constraints we're working within. And we talked a lot early on about building a home version and a school version, but money-wise, it just didn't make sense.
Cool, I'm going to pause on the Q&A and give you a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
So kind of the schedule for the rest of the meetup is I'll do just some quick announcements. But again, just a big round of applause for Maria. Yeah, again, we got the space, so I'll do these announcements real quick, and then you guys can hang out for however long you want and talk one-on-one or talk to some of the other game makers here. The only thing I have for announcements personally is we've got our Fargo Game Jams coming up beginning of October.